Ever stopped and really thought about how much time you actually have in a month? Like
Oh,
really usable time?
yeah.
Well, today we're going to be diving deep into that question
Okay.
with a blog post by a writer named Artato,
hmm
who is a self-described curious writer, passionate about exploring the what, the why, and the how behind everything in our world.
So familiar.
Yeah, right. Kind of like what we
Sure.
do here.
Exactly.
And this post that we're diving into today is called How Many Hours in a Month? Quick Update.
Catchy.
And it really gets into some interesting insights about time.
Yeah, we often think about time in these rigid blocks, days, weeks, months.
Yeah.
But this post really gets into the fluidity of time and how important it is to understand it.
So the post starts off with the basics.
Okay.
It reminds us that a typical month contains anywhere from 672 to 744 hours.
Right.
But as Artato points out, that's just raw potential.
Exactly.
It's like having all the ingredients for a gourmet meal but not knowing how to combine them. The real magic happens when you understand how to transform those raw hours into usable time.
Absolutely.
Now, I've tried time budgeting before, and honestly, it never really worked for me.
Yeah.
What makes Artato's approach different?
Well, Artado digs into the specifics of working hours,
Okay.
which can really change your perspective.
Okay.
For example, let's say you're launching a product in June.
Mm-hmm.
Factoring in the holiday week, you might actually have 4 fewer working days than expected.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's almost a 20% reduction in available work time.
Wow.
Suddenly, those raw hourly figures take on a whole new meaning.
That's a really great point.
Yeah,
It's easy to forget how much those holidays can impact our schedules,
totally.
especially when we're focused on the bigger picture.
Yeah, and it highlights the importance of precision when we talk about time.
Right.
Remember Artado's month-and-a-half example?
Yeah.
Saying that could mean anything from 42 to 46 days, which can make a big difference when you're setting deadlines or planning a project.
Totally. Okay, so we've got to be specific and factor in things like holidays.
Yeah.
But Artato also goes a step further, right?
Yeah.
They talk about how our perception of time is actually rooted in history and culture, specifically with the lunar cycle.
That's right.
Hmm.
Artado brings up this seemingly simple fun fact about how months are based on the lunar cycle,
Mm-hmm.
which lasts about 29.5 days.
Okay.
But think about it. This means our modern calendars are still a nod to our ancestors' fascination with the moon.
Wow.
Even though we standardize months to fit neatly into a year,
Yeah.
many cultures still observe lunar cycles for their holidays and traditions.
This idea of time being fluid, influenced by history and culture, it really makes me wonder how I could be more intentional with my own schedule.
That's a good point.
What else did Artato have to say about making the most of our time?
Well, Artado actually tracked their own time
Okay.
and was surprised by what they found.
Oh.
It turns out they were spending almost 60% of their waking hours on work, leaving very little time for personal life or hobbies.
Yeah.
Think about that. Almost 2/3 of your waking hours dedicated to work.
That's a lot.
Does that align with your values?
That's a good question.
This deep dive is all about helping you find that balance.
Wow. That's a wake-up call for sure. I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of being constantly busy,
Totally.
but not necessarily making time for the things that truly matter.
Mhm.
Tracking time sounds great in theory, but I always find it so tedious.
Yeah,
Did Artato address that in the post?
they did.
Okay.
Artado mentions that the initial effort of tracking your time can feel like a chore, but the insights you gain are well worth it.
Okay.
They discovered their productivity actually peaked between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m.
Really?
and found themselves wasting a lot of time on things like scrolling through social media. Yeah, that kind of self-awareness is invaluable.
So it's not just about being more disciplined with our time. It's
Yeah.
about understanding our own patterns and rhythms so we can work with them, not against them.
Exactly. And that's where Artado's personal experience connects to their call to action.
Oh, right.
They challenge us to reflect on our own time usage and start making choices that align with our goals.
Okay, so we've gone from basic math to lunar cycles to personal anecdotes. It's amazing how much depth there is to this seemingly simple question of how many hours are in a month.
It is fascinating.
But how does this all come together for the listener?
That's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll take a closer look at Artado's call to action
Okay.
and how you can apply these concepts to your own life to become more productive and intentional with your time.
Sounds good.
So we've talked about understanding the nuances of time and how that can help us be more productive and intentional.
Yeah, like really getting into it.
Now let's explore how those insights apply to you and your life.
Yeah, this is where it gets practical.
Yeah.
Artado's call to action, it really challenges us to look in the mirror and ask, how am I really spending my time?
It can feel a bit daunting,
Yeah.
but it's also empowering. Once you have that awareness, you can start making choices that truly reflect your priorities.
Right. It's about taking control rather than just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Artado starts by asking if you've ever had to calculate the number of hours in a month for a specific purpose.
Ooh, this resonated with me.
Oh, yeah.
Because I often find myself saying, oh, I'll get to that in a month or so.
Yeah.
But having a concrete number of hours in mind really changes how I approach deadlines and projects.
Yeah, me too. And I used to think I was a morning person.
Oh, really?
But after tracking my time, I realized I'm way more productive in the evenings.
Interesting.
It was a game changer for me.
It's about understanding your own rhythms.
Yeah.
And that leads to Artado's next question. Have you ever tracked your time and been surprised by the results?
Oh, for sure. Artado mentions finding hidden time sinks and discovering peak productivity times.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what we could all learn from paying closer attention to our own patterns.
Absolutely. Imagine if you could pinpoint those times when you're most focused and creative.
Yeah.
You could schedule your most demanding tasks for those windows, and suddenly you're operating at peak efficiency.
Oh, that's a great point. It's not just about working harder.
Right.
It's about working smarter.
Exactly.
Artado's focus on working hours makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about those of us who are freelancers or work flexible schedules?
Right.
How do these concepts apply to us?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It gets to the heart of why understanding the structure of a month is so important.
Okay.
Even as your work schedule is fluid,
Yeah.
you're still operating within the framework of those 672 to 744 hours.
Right.
The key is to apply those principles of awareness and intentionality to whatever structure your month takes.
Okay, so whether you're tracking your time with an app or simply making mental notes, the goal is to become more mindful of how you're spending those precious hours.
Exactly. And that brings us to Artado's final question.
Okay.
What are your thoughts and tips on time management?
This is where I'd love to hear from our listeners.
Yeah.
What strategies have you found to be helpful in managing your time effectively?
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, let us know.
Because ultimately, there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
What works for one person might not work for another.
Yeah, for sure.
It's about finding what resonates with you and adapting as needed.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We started with basic calculations,
Yeah.
explored the impact of working hours and the fascinating connection to lunar cycles, and even delved into personal experiences and time management strategies.
And while we've explored some very practical tips, Artado's post also sparked some deeper philosophical questions.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We've been talking at the structure of time.
Yeah.
But Artado's post also hints at the possibility of changing our perception of time.
Right. If our understanding of time is influenced by history and culture,
Yeah.
could we intentionally shift that perception to achieve a better work-life balance or boost our productivity?
That's a really intriguing thought. Are we suggesting we can actually manipulate time?
Perhaps not manipulate in the literal sense,
Okay.
but we can certainly become more aware of how our perception of time shapes our experiences and choices.
It's like that saying, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
Maybe if we can shift our perspective, we can find ways to make even the most mundane tasks feel more engaging.
Or maybe it's about finding ways to slow down and savor those moments of joy and connection.
So listeners, as we wrap up this deep dive, we leave you with that challenge. How can you intentionally shift your perception of time to create a more fulfilling and productive life?
What would it look like to bend time to your will?
Share your thoughts and insights.
Yeah.
Because this conversation doesn't end here.
We want to hear your time-bending strategies, your aha moments,
Yeah.
and your dreams of reshaping time itself.
All right, so we've been on quite a journey with this,
We have.
exploring the concept of time.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I think it's helpful to kind of like revisit the key takeaways from Artado's post.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes it's easy to get lost in the big ideas.
Right.
So let's ground ourselves in those essential facts.
Okay.
Artado reminds us that a 28-day month has 672 hours.
Okay.
A 30-day month has 729.
Mm-hmm.
And a 31-day month gives you 744.
All right, so those are our building blocks.
Right.
But then we have to account for working hours.
Yes.
Which can be a lot trickier than they seem at first glance.
Right. A typical 40-hour work week translates to roughly 173 hours in a month.
Okay.
However, holidays and variations in the number of working days can significantly impact that number.
That's why Artato emphasized the importance of precision.
Yeah.
Even seemingly small discrepancies like those we discussed with the month-and-a-half example
Right.
can have ripple effects on deadlines and project plans.
Exactly. And beyond the numbers themselves, Artato's post really highlighted the fact that time isn't this fixed, unchanging entity.
Yeah.
It's influenced by weekends, holidays, and even our own habits and perceptions.
That's what I found so fascinating about this whole post. It's not just about managing our time, it's about understanding that our relationship with time is dynamic and constantly evolving.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to, I think, the final key takeaway.
Okay.
Tracking your time can be incredibly revealing.
Oh, yeah.
It helps you uncover those hidden patterns, identify time wasters, and ultimately become more productive.
It's like shining a light on those unconscious habits that might be holding us back.
Yeah.
Artato's personal experience with time tracking showed how even small adjustments, like scheduling tasks for peak productivity times, can make a world of difference.
Yeah, for sure.
It's about working with our natural rhythms instead of fighting against them.
Right.
And I think that's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
This deep dive has given us a lot to think about in terms of how we structure and perceive time.
For sure. We've gone from basic calculations to philosophical ponderings.
Yeah, we have.
And it's clear that there's so much more to explore when it comes to this seemingly simple question of how many hours are in a month.
We encourage you to continue the conversation in the comments.
Yeah.
Share your own experiences with time management, those aha moments you've had,
Yes.
and any strategies you've discovered for bending time to your will.
Because ultimately, time is our most valuable resource.
It is.
It's the canvas upon which we paint our lives,
Ooh, I like that.
the currency with which we chase our dreams, and the foundation upon which we build our legacies.
Beautiful.
So let's use it wisely, intentionally, and with a sense of wonder.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Until next time, may your hours be filled with purpose and joy.
Yes.